Hello book lovers and welcome to Book Talk Radio Club. My name is Claire Perkins and today I'm talking to author Ralph E. Jarrells. Ralph Jarrells entered the field of writing novels late in his life. He's 76 years old. He retired from corporate America 10 years ago and began an award-winning video production company that specialized in creating video programs for ministry and mission organizations. So far, his work has received 28 international creative awards. His first novel, Ill-Gotten Gain, was published in 2017, and his most recently published novel, Fiery Red Hair, Emerald Green Eyes and a Vicious Irish Temper, is a story of Anne Bonny, the first female pirate as told by Anne to her granddaughter. Hello, Ralph. First of all, welcome, and thank you for coming on Book Talk Radio Club.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, Claire.
Oh, thank you. Would you like to give Book Talk Radio Club's listeners a brief synopsis of Fiery Red Hair?
Fiery Red Hair, Emerald Green Eyes, and a Vicious Irish Temper is a historical fiction, autobiographical account of Anne Bonny's story, as you said. And Anne Bonny was the first female pirate, or among the first anyway.
Yeah.
Anne offers her granddaughter, Annie, she was named for, anything she wanted for her 18th birthday. Annie's request is in two parts. The first, she asked Anne to tell her life story and tell her the absolute truth. Anne agrees, and the story is that story. For the second part of the birthday wish, I guess you have to read the story, and that gives away too much of it. But the book is historical fiction, parts of it based on absolute fact or historical fact, and other parts fiction. I really like that, writing that genre, because the facts create a skeleton around which I can place the fiction like the flesh and end up with the story.
That's wonderful. So tell me, who was Anne Bonny and how did she start pirating?
Anne was actually the illegitimate daughter of a prominent Irish barrister, William Cormac, and his maid, Mary Brennan. William decided that he loved Mary more than he loved his Irish wife or his position in Kinsale, Ireland. So not too long after Anne's birth, the little family booked a passage on a freighter headed to Charlestown, South Carolina. The actual date differs among historians, but I chose to use the one of 1699 for her birth.
Right. And she was the first female pirate, from what we can gather, and amongst 5 of the most notorious female pirates, including Mary Read, Chang Ai-shao, Grace O'Malley, and Rachel Wall. Do you see yourself writing any more books about pirating, or is this a one-off?
Well, I don't know yet, but I am doing some research on a story extension, sort of like James Michener's Centennial, that covers the generations of one family, the history of Anne Bonny Cormac's family, and from where Fiery Red Hair leaves off. My wife and I were in Kinsale, Ireland in October. We met some people there that were intrigued by the story, and we added some information that I didn't have, actually that she was buried there in Kinsale. I haven't found that information in my research, but, also we found a marker showing where she was born. We took some pictures around the marker and did not realize until we were home and looked at the pictures on the computer that there were strange orbs around us and around the marker.
Oh.
So I'm sort of interested, but the project is still very much in its infancy.
Let's talk about the reason behind writing and publishing Fiery Red Hair, Emerald Green Eyes and a Vicious Irish Temper. You say in the foreword of the book that the story was told to you as absolute truth by an elderly English lady who had spent many years living in Charleston, South Carolina. Would you like to elaborate?
Happily. Actually, Dorothy Herbert was the mother of my best friend, Lee Herbert. She and Lee's father, Commander A. Lee Herbert, was commander in the Royal Navy, and the family was stationed in Charleston. Commander Herbert was assigned as liaison from the Royal Navy to the U.S. Navy. Because of his position, and I guess because of Dorothy's natural social manner, she was accepted into Charleston society.
Right.
When Commander Herbert retired, they left Charleston and moved to Columbia, and that's where my information about the story began. Frankly, we had just finished an excellent steak dinner, and we were sitting around the roaring fireplace, sipping on some fine Irish whiskey, and I was telling him about the plot of my first novel, which was also set in Charleston. Mrs. Herbert said, "You ought to look at the story about Aunt Bonnie, the first female pirate. She was from Charleston." I had actually never heard of her.
Right.
And that's odd because my mother was from Charleston. I was raised in South Carolina and actually at one point in time worked for the state of South Carolina, and yet I had never heard about her or her connection to Charleston.
All right. Interesting. I mean, Anne Bonny's time was during the golden age of pirating. What was this golden age of pirating?
Well, the golden age of pirating was technically from about 1650 to about 1720. Of course, there was pirating going on before and after that, but that was the time when well-known pirates were most active. People like Anne Bonny, Edward Teach, Blackbeard, Calico Jack Rackham, who's also in the book, and the gentleman pirate, Steve Bonnet, all were pirating around that same time.
Right.
It was right before the English government declared pirating to be illegal.
Films about pirates, of course, became very popular recently with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I think they became so popular because there's a kind of romanticism behind the idea of pirating. Would you agree with that?
I guess so. I really, thanks to the movies like the Pirates of the Caribbean series and Disney's Pirate Rides and I don't know, the recent TV series Black Sail, the life of pirates has truly been romanticized, but actually that was far from the truth. Nassau, which was the center for pirating in the 1720s, was a dirty, muddy, stinking place.
Yeah.
Pirate ships, sailing for weeks or months at a time, were a whole lot like Nassau, dirty and stinking. But they certainly were not like any of the cruise ships of today in the Caribbean.
I hope not, anyway.
Yeah.
They seem to be an extremely superstitious lot in the films Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Was that true for pirates in real life, as it were? I mean, were they very superstitious?
Well, from my research, I would say yes. For the most part, pirates were pretty much dregs of the earth. They were, many were Shanghai drunks that were carried on board and made to work, or they would be simply thrown overboard. Some of the others joined because of the appearance of easy money, but that too was far from the truth. They were not well educated, so I would say that superstition was probably high on the average pirates.
And they were also an extremely bloodthirsty bunch, weren't they? In fact, I think the female pirates more so than their male counterparts. Perhaps something to prove.
Well, Anne and her shipmate, Mary Read, were certainly far more bloodthirsty than their male counterparts. Maybe that was because there was something they had to prove. Fiery red hair alludes to that part of pirate life, but it's been thoroughly covered under other books. So what I tried to do was to make fiery red hair more of a character study. I wanted the story to have some humor, some real life, because real life is multifaceted. So I wanted Anne to be a multifaceted person as well. Even though I didn't intend for her to be this in the beginning, she's sort of developed into a female Jack Sparrow character. She had an attitude, and a sharp tongue, but that added sarcastic humor, and I think it provided a comic break in the story.
Absolutely. Who is the book aimed at? In other words, who is your target reading audience?
Well, I would have to say I didn't start out with any particular target audience in mind. I just wanted to tell the story, and I wanted it to be one that I wanted to read. Story is basically the conversation between a 56-year-old woman and an 18-year-old girl. And I can tell you, it's been some time since I was either a 56-year-old woman or an 18-year-old girl. So a lot of what I wrote took projection when I was doing the writing. And I've been told it's a chick book. I don't know whether it is or not. I have 4 editors and beta readers that are all women. They and other reviewers have said that my description of the relationship between the grandmother and the granddaughter is spot on. One reviewer said the story takes on a life of its own that she could easily relate to the feelings and the key themes of this one-of-a-kind book, she called it.
Yeah.
That the ending brought tears of joy to her eyes. I greatly appreciate comments like that. As a writer, I guess I see my job as sort of a tour guide. I want to take the reader on an emotional train ride. I would like them to visit emotional places that they don't usually go, and I'd like them to feel things, I guess, that they don't normally feel.
You've done a good job of that. You've definitely done a good job of that.
And if I can do that, then I've been successful.
Why did you decide to write the book with Anne telling the story of her life to her granddaughter rather than just a biography?
Honestly, I don't know.
Fair enough.
I don't think I write I didn't think, and I still don't think I write dialogue very well. So I wouldn't have started writing this book in first person. So it was a challenge, but then I like challenges. After I'd completed my research and had to decide how to write it, the grandmother-granddaughter concept just seemed logical.
Right.
If I did it well, it would connect the reader to the story, I guess, in a way in a way no other form of writing would. So storytelling was the only way to tell the story.
Well, I think that having read the book, for me, it made it much more personal than just dry facts. I enjoyed it. I mean, for me to read it, it was like someone was telling me the story, and I was sitting there with Anne and her granddaughter. I think you've done a very good job of it.
Well, I hope that I was able to tell Anne's story, but looking back, I sometimes wonder if the spirit of Anne Bonny wasn't inside my head saying, hey, let me tell my story.
She took over the writing, huh?
Yeah, regardless, I'm happy with the book and the story so far.
So how much research did it take to tell Anne's story? Was it easy to find accounts of her pirating life?
Well, I found that there were only a couple of books, fictional or whatever, books about Anne Bonny's life.
Okay.
Early on, I decided that I wouldn't read any of these novels, that I really didn't want anybody else's ideas involved in my creative process. So my research was totally in what the supposed facts and factual accounts were and the events of her life. There wasn't a lot of factual sources either. I used all that I could find to make the skeleton of the story, but the images of the locales, the events, the people and million happenings were from my imagination, or, maybe from Anne, the spirit, if that whole idea takes legs.
I think she was a woman before her time and would have fit very easily into the 21st century. Strong-willed, powerful, and as well as the first female pirate, a very good businesswoman. Would you agree?
Certainly. In fact, oddly, the original working title for the story was A Woman Ahead of Her Time.
Ah.
But I think she would fit in today's world without any problem whatsoever.
You're already receiving good reviews for Fiery Red Hair, Emerald Green Eyes and A Vicious Irish Temper, including the book is so good and so well written by Ralph. I felt that I was experiencing her life through her eyes. I can almost smell the warm sea air of the Caribbean. Praise indeed, Ralph. Last of all, where can Book Talk Radio Club's listeners purchase Fiery Red Hair, Emerald Green Eyes and A Vicious Irish Temper?
Well, I always carry copies in the back of my car.
Is that a case of stop me and buy one?
You never know when you find someone who wants to buy a book, but I really do carry them in the back of the car. But Anne's story is available at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and Books A Million, all online, and 2 or 3 dozen other online booksellers, even Target and Walmart.
Great.
So any of those places you can find Fiery Red Hair, Emerald Green Eyes, and A Vicious Irish Temper.
All right, well, thank you, Ralph. That was absolutely great. Please come back on Book Talk Radio Club. I'd love to chat with you and hear more about your books. In the meantime, good luck for the future, and thank you, everyone, for listening to Book Talk Radio Club. Thanks very much, Ralph.
Thank you. I enjoyed it so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My absolute pleasure.